With that, I am super happy to introduce a great colleague and friend and a really great presenter and all around general smart guy, Ilias Katsardis. He is the product manager for Cluster Director, and we are incredibly proud of this technology. I think anyone on this call with an HPC background will immediately see how important this technology is for HPC and AI workloads. And with that, Ilias, I'm turning it over to you.
Thanks, Jay. I don't know what I'm gonna say after that great intro. I think you oversold me. So let me start understanding. So I over deliver, right? I'm incredibly proud. I'm presenting to you today. I think Jay and the rest of the team are building a great community, and it's only possible because you guys are here. In the audience, I see a lot of friends, a few colleagues as well, people that I know. So it's hard to present to people you know, and I'm sure you know it, right? More than me. It's easier to present to strangers, and some of you actually know a thing or two about Cluster Director, but I will keep this as plain as possible. Last time we presented about Cluster Toolkit when I was speaking, and I show you the timeline as well through really the history of HPC and Google Cloud, right? This is more of our newest kid in the block. I actually started Cluster Director just about when my daughter was delivered, right? So they're both 2 years old now. I will leave it to you to figure out which one is keeping me awake in the night right now. So, without further ado, what is it, right? For the people that they see it first time. So, imagine that you have all the options in the world. You can go grab a VM, you can install Slurm manually yourself, you can add nodes. Okay, sure. You did it. As a matter of fact, it's easier today with Cloud Code or Gemini or any of the other agentic era tools. However, it misses an important factor. The part that what happens if it fails in 3 o'clock in the morning, or what happens if actually all of these are not entirely glued together in the way that we want them to. And this is where Cluster Director jumps in, right? We give our customers a full product managed end to end. Imagine that if Google was a gigantic supermarket and previously you were going and saying like, I want to get some pasta, some sauce, some onions, some vegetables, blah, 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 blah. You get all of these components and sometimes you get more, sometimes you get less. You have to figure it out and always you have to keep the recipe in your mind. Now, if you're like me, going into the supermarket, it always takes longer than it actually needs to, right? Especially now with a 2 year old. However, if you're busy, you will just prefer to get the full meal, right? And that's what Cluster Director is. It's already there for you. You just click a button or you interact with the CLI and you grab the full product. I will show you a live demo as well. This is how proud we are and confident that the demos work because live demos present their own challenges, right? Um, you don't have to use Cluster Director, of course. You can use Vertex AI training, which is actually built on top of Cluster Director. And it's for people, customers that are more familiar with the Vertex ecosystem. They already have a significant footprint there. Or you can just go and use it natively for GKE and GCE. And then just take parts of what we have. And of course, within the Cluster Director ecosystem, you can also use Cluster Toolkit. If you don't want managed Slurm, if you don't want all of these things that we have as an add-on, and you prefer to customize it a lot more and be with what it may in terms of resilience, etc., you can also use Cluster Toolkit. Now, I've shown this slide in the past, and you can really see that we have a history here. From 1 second. This was the other 2 year old. So you can see in 2018, we really started investing in Slurm GCP. The problems we had back there were really that Slurm is built for on-prem clusters that you have a fixed capacity. And now you're coming into cloud where actually you can just spin up VMs and spin them down as you please and as you go. So we started basically using the power on, power off that was for Slurm clusters to actually power off compute nodes on an on-prem environment to save energy, to actually power on instead of actually creating an API to spin up this node and being acquired to Google Cloud. Now, we evolved through the years, and actually, I almost feel like we are doing a full circle because we started from on-prem, we started to go into the dynamic nodes, and now we're back to I don't want dynamic nodes. I want to have as many GPUs as possible. I will never spin them down because someone else will take them. And the product needs to also evolve with it, right? It's no longer that much of a dynamic placement. It's looking more traditional than a traditional HPC AI cluster ever did. Um, and of course, that is the problem because it may look that way, but customers will still need the flexibility and power and improvements that you have from a cloud environment. So today, with the scarcity on the GPU side of compute power, this is even more important than ever. So this is where basically our foundation includes all our partners in terms of our storage. You can see NetApp, Weka, Fuse, Cycom, just to name a few. We also have partnerships with others like VAST and the rest. We also have our own parallel file system with managed Slurm, with managed raster. We have scheduler support. We have a lot of generic tools that we support as well. Of course, everything we have in compute, network storage, in terms of our own products as well. And we have blueprints for everything. Now, this is where Cluster Toolkit shines. And Cluster Toolkit, remember, is being used by Cluster Director as well. It allows you to do anything you want, really, right? But we cannot have anything that you want as a fully managed service. So out of that set, we take the ones that are the best sellers, let's say, and we actually make them a managed infrastructure, a managed blueprint. And in that part, you go basically, and you can see in the GIF how you can actually go and create a reference architecture based cluster. You can select the reference architecture you are thinking of. You can basically then go and edit. You can add your reservation or change your consumption options. And we'll go through all of these options live as well, just so you get a better feel of the product. But it can be as easy as that, right? The moment you added your compute, you don't really need to do anything else. As long as you're agreeing on, the default settings that we have for you in terms of networking storage, you can just press next, next, and basically end up with a fully usable managed Slurm cluster. Now, important thing here is that when we say managed Slurm, we actually mean it, but we don't take the flexibility away from you. So the controller node will be in a controlled project by Google Cloud, which you don't have access to. But all of the other nodes, including login nodes and of course the compute nodes, will actually spin up to your own project, which means that you can sudo SSH in them, do whatever you want. And if you break the node, then you can simply even delete it and we will recreate it from that point, right? So it's the best of both worlds in a way. And we also have the ability for you to use your own custom images and things like that. We will deep dive in all of this. You see the UI because the UI is easier to explain in a video and things like that. But we also have a CLI and API support. And we're also adding Terraform. So if you really like Terraform, you can still use it to spin up a cluster with us, that you don't actually have to use Terraform for all the single components. You can just get it. Now, let's go live to the product. Let me share the screen. This is the best part of the speech, the one I like the most. So you can actually go and see, you start typing cluster director. For whatever reason, we always suggest cluster directory. So if you select that and backspace, you will see then the top results, cluster director. Once you click on it, you can see everything that we have. You can even start a chat with our compute advisor. And I will show you this if we also have time. It's actually quite cool use of AI in this case. And we also have documentation. We have a full documentation. Like if you click this link, for example, you can go to our documentation page for Cluster Director. We have an amazing team that is putting the documentation together. So if you are going to use Cluster Director, I advise you to have a look in this as well before you go, or while your cluster is being created, actually, so you get a better idea of what we're doing. There are a few things that I'm specifically um, wanting customers to have a look at. For example, how do you choose consumption? Here's a nice guide that we have on basically explaining all the capacity options that we have. What does that mean? What kind of GPUs do they support? And basically having a decision tree diagram that guides you through what is the capacity that you can get. Especially, with choice comes a responsibility, but it's also harder when you have more choices. So that's why we're putting a good documentation together, I would say. Now, you can actually go and create a cluster. It first asks you about, do you want to use a reference architecture, or do you actually want to go through a step-by-step configuration? It doesn't really matter if you want to go on a step by step. It's not like if you select a reference, we will not allow you to do certain configurations. The trick is that the reference architecture, think of it as a predetermined pre-filled for some options that you might need to delete. Like, for example, a reference architecture for let's say large scale model AI training for A3 Ultra will give you managed cluster. If you go on a default, you don't have a managed cluster by default, let's say, for example, right? And then you can delete it, and then it can still be like a default option. So we're not taking options away. The name of the cluster is predetermined. The first thing that we're asking you here is basically that we need more information. Once you click on the edit button, you can see what that information is. And basically, it is that for H200, we advise customers with Cluster Director to actually have a reservation if they really want uninterrupted training for that specific use case. So assuming that you already have your reservation, you basically can come here, you can select your reservation. It will set everything that you have in the project and basically give you all the compatible reservations that you can do. Now you can basically choose the reservation and it pre-fills the location, everything for you. Now, let's say you wanted to go and add another resource configuration. For example, let's say you wanted to add and still H200, but actually Spot, or if you wanted to use FlexStack. All of these are possible as well, provided that the backend VM supports these technologies. If not, you will see them grayed out. We also have other machine VMs, of course. You have the H100, and we have a lot of general purpose. Really, you can pick what you want. And if you have FlexStart here, then you can see that you only have two options. If you go for a reservation, then basically you can select the reservation out of the H100 or out of the H200 that you have. Now, if you were to continue, you will basically see our networking. Here you can actually select the VPC network that you already have if you have one, but we advise customers that haven't really set up the VPC network for this specific use case to actually come and let us create a VPC network for them. For the storage is the same thing. We have a file store as a home file system, and then we also have a managed cluster for the cluster tier, for the scratch tier. So basically your workload can run there a lot faster, which is especially important for things like checkpointing, for example. And then finally, on the orchestration piece, we give customers a lot of choices. You can change your login nodes, of course. You can add startup scripts. You can manage. You can have labels. You can change your partitions. You can add. You can remove. You can edit. You can mark it default or not. And we're always adding more into that as well. Prologue, epilogue scripts, ones that are familiar with Slurm will actually be able to really extend the capabilities that Slurm provides for them, and the customization through the Prolog and Epilogue scripts. And then we have also a Slurm maintenance policy. Since we manage your infrastructure, we'll need about every week about like 15 minutes for ongoing operations that are not actually going to affect your cluster. Like your jobs are gonna keep running, etc. You might not be able to submit new jobs for like 2 minutes at a time, etc. For that reason, if you're really worried about this, we also give you as a customer the possibility to tell us that here are the maintenance windows that I will allow you. You can actually do all your updates on those specific windows. So we make sure that we do not interrupt in any way your cluster. And then you can also have a visual guidance to help you with that. So then you can just go, basically, you can create your cluster, or you can take the equivalent code now that you have created this cluster, either in REST or command, and you don't have to use the UI ever again if you don't need to, right? UI is not something that customers have to use once they know what to do, but most of the times we find really useful for customers that are experiencing the product for the first time, that actually the UI through Cloud Console is giving them a really good understanding of all the options that the product has. Now, of course, nobody wants to go through creating a cluster and not really using it, and that's not really where the benefits of Cluster Director are actually as well, right? The reason why you create a cluster is to actually use it, and the reason why you use Cluster Director is to use it efficiently and resiliently. You want to make sure that your hardware is there always, as much as possible, up and running, and that your workloads are making progress. For that reason, the biggest weight on Cluster Director is actually on the resiliency piece, on the maintenance piece, on making sure that we enable you as customers. So, for example, you can go and you can see an active cluster that we have, which you can edit at any point, right? If you want to come and add more resources, you can add it. If you want to change key aspects about your cluster, like the storage or file systems or anything you will need, you can also do that in a running cluster. Which really gives you the sense that we think of a cluster more as a pet rather than a cluster, right? Rather than cattle. We have full detailed logs that help our customers understand what is going on with their cluster. Like, for example, you can actually see the live events for your cluster. You can track, you can really investigate anything that might be going on with your cluster. And then, of course, you see the nodes that are in this cluster. You see the possibility for all of the nodes that you have auto-provisioned, but only two are actually being used. And of course, you have a deep observability layer, which you can have all of these graphs. And if you are me, you get special treats also from my team. Since I'm the product manager, they always like to give me an Easter egg as well. So you as a customer will never see it, but if you see me presenting, you will actually be having a quick laugh about it, right? So as you are moving through all of the information, you actually find a very condensed profile of all your nodes, of everything that your cluster is doing, the memory of the nodes that you have. We have it as CPU memory and network, and then on the accelerators, because it depends on GPUs and TPUs, we have the need to separate them, right? Because they're unique in their own way. Like, for example, TPUs don't have the CGM, they don't need it, right? So in this case, when you're actually using, you can think of it like, here's the host, and this part is for your accelerated, right? CPU memory network are the network of the VM, not the network inside NVLink, for example. For that reason, you will go on the GPU tab, and then you can see a lot more information about your GPU network and NVLink. And of course, the topology, which it will not really shine here because I only have two nodes. So I have a fake demo where actually I can have as many nodes as I want without having to pay for them. And then I can actually show you how it would be looking if you were to have, let's say, 768 nodes. So let's select the same cluster again with the pre-populated data. You go through the topology and you get a really nice view of all of the nodes that you have. Now, this is the important part. We make our topology actually space aware, which means that you can see that these four nodes are actually in the same rack. And we mark that with another um, graph here, right? Another block. And the other four nodes are in another rack. And that way you can actually have immediately the understanding that all of your nodes, it's like a data center view, right? And then you have another block, etc. Now, when we first made this, had a lot more lights and graphics and things like that. And the team called it actually a Christmas tree. Um, we very quickly understood that this is not looking like a Christmas tree. This is more looking like a vault for a bank. Because if you think that behind every one box is sitting a $50,000 node, then you can actually see that this is like a banking vault in a sense, right? And that's how we actually treat your nodes. They're very expensive equipment that they are there to actually do something useful for you. So when we try to give you information, we actually try to give you that information as quickly and as accurately as possible. For that reason, for example, we're adding a few new capabilities that we can talk about. Like, for example, when you're using Slurm and you are submitting a job, you can then very quickly have another tab here that we're building, which is about jobs. You can add your job name or job ID, and then it will only highlight the nodes that are participating in this run. So you can very quickly then understand that if you have four nodes, but it's in different racks, for example, maybe your performance is not as good as it could be on one block. And of course, with Cluster Director, we always try to submit the jobs in the most condensed matter as possible, right? So if we had one rack that was full and then four racks that they were like half full, let's say, we'll still use the full rack for you automatically when you submitted your job. But if those racks were not full, then we won't wait forever to submit your job, right? Or you can see your jobs being in a block two and block one, which then the performance might degrade a little bit more depending on what your code is doing. So you can very accurately and very timely show all of that information. Now, when it comes to things that we're planning to go ahead and a little bit more details here, right? Going back to the presentation, you can actually see that we have a second. So you can actually see that we have always on telemetry. We even have straggler detector. So if we detect that maybe there is something abnormal with one of your nodes, we will also mark it as red. And of course, AI self-predictor, which means that we are constantly running a full evaluative LLM model trained on our data centers. And if we detect some early signals that might end up basically predicting a failure on that node, we will also alert our customers and let them know that this node might end up having an issue in the next 2 hours. So um, everything here is designed for allowing our customers to operate. For that reason, we also have validated operating system images. We also give you the flexibility to have your own custom image on top of everything that we have, or just put a startup script that will allow you to tweak and tune your operating system according to your need. We already discussed that we support natively cloud storage, including Fuse, with file store and managed Lustre. We support all flexible consumption models that we have, including Spot, Flex, Start, or Calendar, and of course, Reserve blocks. This gives you the best for your buck and availability. And then also we are adding a few key innovations here, like for example, a Gemini Cloud Assist, where imagine like you can actually ask for your cluster that something happened during night and my cluster doesn't appear healthy. Can you please go and figure out what the error was? And Gemini will do the important work for you there to investigate the failure and go through all of that pile of links that we had previously, right? Um, and as part of the GACC community, I will give you a few highlights of what we are thinking and what the team is actually working on for our upcoming roadmap for this year. The first and most important one is the PPU. So many of you know, if not all, that TPU is really a unique product that we have. We really believe in it, and we have really seen the production use case from us and from our own customers that um, justify that characterization, right? So for that reason, we could not support it in Cluster Director. But we didn't just choose to support it, we're actually going all the way with it, right? So we're also adding Slurm support for TPUs, equivalent to what you can get with a generic resource right now with Slurm and the GPU. We're actually partnering with what used to be SkidMD and now is NVIDIA. We're not working in silo on this, and we are going to actually private preview this in the next few weeks, if not this week, right? Um, if you are interested, let us know. And that is not just for TPUs, that is for everything, right? You're free to reach out and ask any questions that you have. I'll also give you some time in the end. And then it's the health policy check. We understand that every customer is different, every VM is different, every day is different, and every workload is different. So we cannot just tell you that we are taking the best choices outside of this scope, let's say, right? So we're actually giving you the full control in a way that is easy for you to do so. What I mean by that is we're going to add three action levels. The reporting only, which basically tells cluster director, hands off, don't do anything. We will do everything, just reporting, and the customer can do everything that they need themselves. The conservative is really basically what we will say, like, if we know that with this error code, the, the node is non-recoverable unless you do a restart, then we will basically do the restart. But if that's not the case, we will just cordon the node off and not allow you to submit any jobs on it because it's actually appearing faulty, right? And then the full remediation is where we will actually go and try to be more investigative with the product. We're actually, we will try to restart your node a few times. And if there's still a problem, then we will cordon it off or maybe even submit it for RNR, which gives the node back to our data center folks to try and figure out what the problem is. Then I already alluded to this for custom images. We want our customers to actually be able to take any kind of image that we have and we support, and then basically customize it, make a derivative out of this, and still fully support it as cluster director product. And then allow them to basically very quickly see all the images that they have here and provision a new node with that image, or even update the nodes that they have with the new images. And you can see here basically that you can go in an active cluster, you can just select your partition, you can go to the node image, you can actually go and change the image. And what we will then do for you is we will make sure that we submit a single node job for every node in that cluster, give it the highest priority. So the very next workload that will run will for that node will be the updated image. And that basically guarantees that every previous node in the previous image will still run the workload that they're running. Once they stop, they will update, and then every new workload on it will actually be on the new image. which is a neat way to actually use Slurm to help you help our customers support an image update rollout strategy natively with Slurm. We had a lot of customers that actually want to use a lot of the benefits that Cluster Director provides, but without actually having Slurm as their orchestrator. They either have homegrown, or they have their own versions of it, or they don't even need an orchestrator and they just submit the jobs. In this case, we want to give them that flexibility, so we create the import resources, where you can actually just point to the resources and you can add them to Cluster Director as a virtual cluster, which is not a cluster that we will manage those resources, but we will keep an eye on them. So, for example, if you have properly selected cloud operations, we will show you the information that these nodes are providing. If you haven't in your own image, then we wouldn't be, right? But we can give you as much information as possible. Like, for example, the topology view, we will be able to show you, but we won't be able to show you if your node is healthy or unhealthy unless you actually have linked it up with our cloud operations. And then comes the unmanaged clusters, where actually you don't want to have an orchestrator, but you still want to, let's say, for example, create a managed instance group and have that registered with Cluster Director. And you don't really need us to manage your orchestrator, but you still need us to manage your cluster. Right? There's an important distinction there. In that case, you can actually now, from what we are adding, you can actually go and you can create an instance group or MIG, managed instance group, as we call it internally. So with that, I promised Jay that I'm going to leave 20 minutes for the discussion, because this is a community. And the important thing about the community is that we actually talk instead of having me do all the talking. So I see a flurry of activity. But Jay, maybe you want to help me go through the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Ilias, and for
My
leaving us
first
time
pleasure.
for questions. And let's all give Ilias a round of applause for that. Thank you so much. Ilias, I'm actually going to ask the first question before I jump to these, because I want to make sure that our audience is getting a good summary of the capabilities and a feel for whether or not it fits their specific needs or not. So you said that it covers or will soon cover all of our major compute types of instances: CPU, GPU, TPU. You mentioned that it covers a couple of different storage options. You mentioned file store and Lustre. So my first question is, does it cover any of the other storage options that are available through something like Google Cloud Marketplace, the SciComps or VAST or things like that? Or will those other platforms be usable in Cluster Director in the future?
Yeah, so we have a great partners with all of the people, with all of the companies you mentioned, Jay, right? And um, our effort is to try and give a first class citizen view of all of them, right?
Mhm.
However, if I'm not going to create your file system, like for example in the managed cluster, it's trickier for us to be able to hook in all of these systems. Some of these partners actually allow you to have, like even with our partner SciComp, we added the support for Cluster Toolkit, where we have done the work. So technically we are there, but even there, for example, we have an issue with licensing. Like if you're going to use Spectrum Symphony, let's say, then I'm not allowed to actually give you that code myself. I don't have the redistribution rights and things like that. So every partner actually presents its own
Okay,
challenges, and they're very unique. What we are trying to do is, in the case where you can simply mount that file system as an NFS, we are trying to give you the option for a custom file system, which means that if you can tell me the IP, the protocol, the ports, make sure that the firewall is available, and then you tell me how you want me to mount it via NFS, we can actually go and do that very easily, right? There's no need for tricky. Now, things like, I need to also have the kernel updated. And to get that specific Linux kernel for that specific vendor, in that case, you can still do it through your custom image, but it's more of a mounting option that we will allow you to do. It's not that we created the file system and thus we are
got
responsible
it.
for them for that file system, right? But we do
Okay,
partner, and our customers do have that need.
great. All right. I have a question here in the Q&A feature. Okay, the first one's easy. Missed some part of it. Will the recording be uploaded somewhere?
Yes.
Yes, Reju, we always upload the videos to our Google Cloud Advanced Computing Community YouTube channel. So we hope that you will subscribe to that. In fact, we hope everybody on this call will subscribe to our YouTube channel. You never have to watch a video, but it will make it much easier for you to discover them if you subscribe to that channel. Next thing, I got another question from Dharma. Thanks for joining us again, Dharma. He says, is the CLI module of Gemini now aware of the cluster director? And Jeremy, probably one thing we should be clear with you about is that I think you're talking about Gemini CLI. We now have anti-gravity CLI as well as anti-gravity IDE. The Gemini CLI project has now been made an open source project, but I'll let Ilias address the question about what Gemini CLI and anti-gravity know about Cluster Director.
Everything. Yeah, there's no getting rid of them now. Now that the agents are there, there is nothing stopping them, right? So actually, we're integrating them even on the product. If you really see through the video, you will see like, let me just open it very, very quickly, show you once again. You can even see that we have actually added parts of it throughout the product, right? And you can start the chat within actually Cluster Director with the Compute Advisor. We even have a prompt for you, which is basically provide the configuration manifest CLI, blah, blah, blah. And then you can
Right.
just get click on it. These actually items go very, very, very fast, all of them, apart from the very last one, which is on purpose, because the very last one is making sure that everything you told me is accurate and they all work together. Validate every output that you have given me, right? Which is
Mhm.
the most important one. Still, for customers that really want to just jump on and hit the wheels and have a curious question about some customization, I would heavily advise that they can use this. But I always tell my customers that if you actually rely only on AI to create your cluster, be warned that if a problem, if you skip all the learning curve, and then you go at 3 o'clock in the morning with a problem, then you better hope that you actually have done a little bit of research yourself, right? And you know what's going on. But
Right.
then, yeah, you can see that it's going through everything, even checking the quotas for the project and things like that. It's really, really cool, and we understand the use case.
Thanks, Elias. Another question from Reju. I know we started with Slurm support, but is there a Kubernetes-based cluster coming soon?
Yeah, people say Kubernetes. We also have GKE. Our feeling is that with Slurm, we were behind the managed Slurm offering. In terms of what we wanted. We gave customers a lot of control and flexibility with our cluster toolkit and Slurm environment. And that was fantastic for the HPC folks, right? Which really loved it. They will love the customization. They want to do everything themselves. They have already the administrators, the admins, everybody that understood that technology from their on-prem or from other cloud vendors that they were coming to us, right? For the AI era, a lot of these new startups didn't actually have the Slurm know-how or prior investment into that. And they really needed that next level of an even more managed product. For the Kubernetes, even those startups actually understand Kubernetes these days, right? And they're experts and masters on this. So for them, it's also very easy to just go to GKE and spin up a cluster. If you have never heard Slurm before, the chances are that you will start on Kubernetes today.
All right, thank you. I see there's a couple of questions that weren't submitted in the Q&A thing, but I've been alerted there's two in the chat. So Joby and Karthik, I'm going to ask your questions here now as well. We do have a Q&A feature we encourage you to use, so we'll see them earlier, but there's plenty of time. So let's see, Joby asks, is this possible to access and make configuration of cluster director through APIs?
Sure. The beauty of doing things in Google, they might take a little bit longer, but because you know, they take longer because of something, right? And that something is that we need to actually do 100 things to do the one that we actually need because we have all of these requirements on ourselves. We're quite strict, right? So of course, it's API first in the sense that everything that we have in the UI is actually being called from an API. Even ourselves, what we're doing, we're calling that API, and that API is a public API, which means that everything there that we can do through the UI, you can also do through the API, and we have the API available for our customers.
All right. And Karthik asked, can this be enabled within a company's Google organization on a specific project? Can this be configured with shared VPC or NCC rather than standalone? Does this work with private endpoint? What is the amount of logging available on audit logs and default logs? So it was one question with four parts there. Elias, you can probably see it in your chat window there. It's towards the bottom of the chat. So
Yes, I see it from Karthik.
there you go.
Karthik, you sound like you're ready to move in and use cluster director. I will tell you, yes, you can use it in your Google organization. We even had it with customers that have a lot stricter requirements than those you mentioned. Like we're now working into HIP, HIPAA certification and a few things like that. We do have VPCSC control, of course. You do have the capability to use it with a private endpoint and with your own VPC. We allow customers to actually import their own VPC that they have set up for that exact reason. And it's an API basically that you can enable as part of any project. So the moment you enable that API in your project, then you are able to use Cluster Director. In another project in that organization, if you haven't enabled the API, then similar to any other API, you're not able to use Cluster Director, right? So we're following the same rules, and we're not going to surprise you, basically, right? And the
All right.
amount of logging, audio logs, default logs, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure we have a lot, but we miss one or two or three that you would actually need. That part is the easiest one in the equation. If that's really stopping you from adopting Cluster Director, tell us which logs you need. We will give you more than what you even wanted.
I got another question from Diarmid here. Is there an HPC Quick Lab which goes beyond installation of Slurm? I don't know of them. Diarmid, I could probably help answer this. We do have HPC Quick Labs about using Slurm and how to submit jobs as well. I'm not sure how, when you say beyond installation of Slurm, I don't know if you mean beyond as in using Slurm or even beyond that as in writing HPC codes and then submitting with Slurm. But at least in terms of submitting jobs using Slurm on Google Cloud, yes, there are quick labs for that. And we also cover it a lot in our in-person classes as well. We did not at the ISC short workshop, but usually we cover that. And in fact, we'll be covering it here in Chicago tomorrow. We just this morning, we're talking about online training and online asynchronous training for HPC topics, a comprehensive online class, and then some more advanced ones as well. So Diarmid, stay tuned on that. We'll probably talk about that in September more in the community. Okay, and Mark Wittenberg asked back in the chat. Mark, I'm going to ask you to put that in the Q&A next time, but we're going to ask it here from chat now. Can a researcher give the parameters of their science to determine the best machine type? I.e., I'm running molecular dynamics to generate a molecule that binds to protein X, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and has a molecular weight under 500. What's the best price performance machine type I should use? Mark, do you want, I'm sorry, Elias, do you want to take a stab at that or you want me to?
I can take the first step, which is with Compute Advisor, you can actually go and tell it, I'm really looking to start an HPC cluster. I'm in molecular dynamics or bioscience or, computation fluid dynamics, and I need something very, very performant, right? And it will actually go and give you three choices. This is the cheapest, this is the fastest, this is what I will also recommend if you are in the between of the two. Now, depending on the data that it has or even are available to begin with, I don't think that you can actually say that if in that input I will give you this, and that specific options and that
Right.
specific setting, it will actually tell you exactly what the performance is or what to expect. But I think that it will actually give you a good enough answer that probably you're already kind of there. Like there's always a part of there are two things. I used to be a performance analyst in Cray back in the day, right? Which we're always my job was to always optimize code, actually, right, and vectorize it and improve the performance and things like that. There are always two things in my mind since this day. The first one is Donald Cluth about premature optimization is the root of all evil that all software engineers know. The other one is that at some point you're getting diminishing returns for the effort that you're putting, right? So what I would say is that I think that with the AI, it will get you to where you want 80% to be in the very, very beginning,
Yep.
right? Which is incredible since you get started. Now, after that point, and once you have the workload running, you could actually experiment easily because Cluster Director makes it easy for you to add and remove nodes, use spot, etc. So you might actually go and edit your cluster, add three or four more options, and then just give it a go. In some of these cases, it's actually better for you to test it rather than having to kind of guess estimate it, because the truth of the matter is that we have a lot of CPU and GPU options, but we don't have thousands. There are not even thousands around, right? So if you take the latest, you have four or five. Like we will tell you, H4D, for example, is the best performance per dollar, and that will actually turn out to be correct independent of what kind of work you're doing, because we have made sure that we got the best performing CPU and we give it to our customers in the cheapest configuration in terms of overall cost, right? So even if your workload is a little bit special, it might not be special enough to actually justify a whole different architecture.